A good heart and a good head are always a formidable combination, said Dr. Nelson Mandela. Quoting him, Nirmala Kurien spoke about her dad and said, "My dad had the best of both." And she was talking about the father of the dairy movement, the father of the white revolution, the Amul man, her dad, Dr. Verghese Kurien. Hello, hi, and welcome to Meaningful Mondays with me, Rashmi Shetty, a space where I share my life lessons. And today's is based on the Amul man, or India's milkman as we call him, Dr. Verghese Kurien, whose centenary we celebrated on 26th November. A man who needs to be really remembered and appreciated for taking up the challenge of converting a country that had a deficit of milk into the largest exporter of milk in the world. A man who took up the challenge of making sure that we become the first country to convert buffalo milk into milk powder. But his journey did not start that way. Taking a government scholarship, he went to the US, studied, did his post-graduation doctorate, and the condition of the scholarship was he should come back and serve the country. So he came back and was posted in Anand in 1949. Nothing much happening there, landless farmers, he didn't see too much challenge and therefore wanted to leave. He was packing his bags after his resignation was accepted when Tribhuvandas walked up to him and told him, "Dr. Kurien, we need you. You can make a difference." And that changed it, not only for Dr. Verghese Kurien, but for the country at large and the farmers in particular. A cooperative movement began and was due to begin because this man decided to make a difference. He thought of the farmers in 1949, much before the world got up to realize their value. Doing the grassroots study, he understood middlemen were the ones making the most money between the farmer and the procurement centers. And he needed a way to drop them out of this structure. And that's what he did first. He made procurement centers very easy for farmers to come and drop their milk, get it measured, and get paid accordingly to the quality that they are giving in to the cans there. And once the farmers got paid, the loyalty started increasing and they were more careful on the quality of milk that they were giving. Now farmers not only from the village of Anand but in and around and the villages slightly far away would all come, and the procurement centers were distributed so beautifully that it was easy for the farmer to come and drop his can of milk. From there began the processing, which again was simplified so that there is not too much of journey that happens between the procurement center and the process center. And then the distribution, first at the district levels and then at the state levels, making sure that every farmer who could give milk from his cattle was getting his due. And the clarity of making this a cooperative movement was to make sure that the farmer gets 80% of what is due to him, while 20% is kept by the cooperative society. Now, in order to put these ideas into place, there was funding that was required. And therefore, when you go to investors, you need a brand name. And that's when Dr. Kurien sat and he said, okay, what's our group called? Anand Milk United Limited. And that's where each alphabet was taken and Amul was formed. But does Amul have a meaning? Well, in Hindi and Sanskrit, Amulya means priceless. And that's how the name was born, the brand was born. Because he realized that the biggest yield the farmers are giving in the form of milk is also one of the most easily perishable one. And there needed to be a way to make sure that the farmers don't face a loss. He had to make sure that the cattle feed was good. And thus began that entire journey of rural development. He realized if the farmer works from his space without the presence of the middleman, directly giving the milk and getting 80%, he's rich enough to make sure he gives good quality cattle feed. And when the cattle feed is good quality, the milk that is procured is also very good. So that's where the journey began and the revolution started, that India soon had surplus of milk. And when Amul started under this umbrella brand, all the other products that were brought under it came under the broad umbrella of Amul. Dr. Kurien was a very strict manager, a very strict leader. So when he was asked, how is it that your team of people served you so loyally and did not want to leave you, though initially their start with you was hesitant, he said somewhere they saw meaning in what they were doing. Obviously, they must have found some rewards, and rewards always need not be money. They were so happy to be part of an experiment for rural India, and therefore, in any development process, putting one hand or leg in is something that will be memorable, and that's what made all the difference in their decision. And that's how his journey with his team began. And then on went an amazing life lesson that he gave me. He said it is very important for us to understand that when you're creating leadership, you need to create value. He said the problem was youngsters, young managers did not mind being managers of the branch of an MNC, but did not want to be the CEO of a cooperative. We needed to change that. And thus was born IRMA. This is where managers were taught, management was taught as a rural management space. And the biggest lesson that went into all those managers was work not where you will be rewarded the most, but where you are needed the most. And that was a principle for IRMA students to move in their career paths. Soon, everything started falling in place, and Dr. Verghese Kurien saw his dream coming alive. Organically, now he had everything in place, but what he needed was a branding because marketing this was very important as it was a perishable item. And that's where the marketing of Amul came into the picture. I remember when I was in school and college, I would wait for the bus to pass by that particular hoarding which updated Amul Ads every week. Because there was something which was very contemporary about Amul Ads. The freshness of the ad, in keeping with what was the latest news, made it interesting. And that is why the mascot of Amul also hasn't changed over the years. And we don't even feel that it's the same old mascot because the thought is very contemporary. And that freshness that they bring each time is something that is laudable. So here was a brand created completely indigenously, which had the brilliance of Indians behind it, staying contemporary, and making sure that this brand had great market value. A cooperative and not a business house, but converted into a profit center. What a man and what an idea behind it. So it doesn't matter where you begin, it's what you make of the opportunity with you is an important lesson that Dr. Kurien taught us. The next most important thing is when many people asked him, you lived in Anand for so many years, but you don't speak Gujarati. So he had a very beautiful explanation. He said, Gujarati is the local language, and farmers, when they know you can speak their local language, would come to share a lot of their personal stories. And I needed to insulate myself. For self-preservation, it was important for me to make sure I have the shield. Though people don't credit me for the amount I understand of Gujarati as a language, I definitely did not attempt to try and speak it out so people don't know how much I know of the language. So when you're climbing up the leadership ladder, it's very important for you to understand where to be objective as well. Detached attachment, so beautifully put forth by him. A man of very few words, his sense of humor is something everyone talks about. The poker faced expression with which he speaks, if you see his interviews also, there's very little he speaks, but there's so much in that little that he gives. An interesting case study is the man himself. But what for me was the third and most important life lesson was when he was asked about him being an atheist. And he said, yes, I don't want people using religion to control a whole flock of people. And that's what people were doing with religion. And that's why I chose to be an atheist. So then they asked him very curiously, so where do you draw your power from then? He said, from myself. I was confident I could do something out of what I have on hand. And I think for every leader, that self-confidence pays. And nobody has taught us that better than Dr. Verghese Kurien. Integrity, hard work, dedication, punctuality, all these are qualities that he represented, stood for, and valued. And everyone in his team valued these as well. And they credit this as being the reason why he reached the heights he did. So the next time you pick your glass of milk or you see the brand Amul in your cheese or any other thing at home, your ice cream, butter, whatever, remember, one man worked behind it to make sure that we as a country enjoy our milk and milk products. So whether it's your glass of milk, your cup of coffee or tea with milk in it, look up, thank Dr. Verghese Kurien for whatever he did, because whatever he did changed a lot for this country for sure. Thank you, Dr. Kurien, for all that you did for India. May your soul rest in peace wherever you are. And may you have a purposeful, meaningful week ahead. Stay safe, stay blessed.